The opinions expressed by the host and guests on Where Did the Road Go are their own and do not represent those of WVBR or its management. Our aim is to explore the fringe, lost civilizations, alternative science, the paranormal, and much more. Join us on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com, where you can send us questions for our live or future guests via email or the live chat room. And remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And now welcome to this week's edition of Where Did the Road Go?
And this week on Where Did the Road Go, we have as our guest Josh Reeves. Are you with us, Josh?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, and you're based out of Texas, right?
Yeah, Dallas.
All right. Now your research currently involves sort of ancient, very ancient, prehistoric type stuff, but that's not where you started with all this, is it?
No, actually, it's not. I actually started at a very young age researching UFOs and Bermuda Triangle stuff, and then got into JFK stuff when I was in high school, and then through my 20s and stuff was just kind of still had a side interest in all of this stuff as I was a musician for many years, and then I had a pretty nice tech job right before 9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and at that moment I just, from all my research into other topics, I knew something was going on with this. And I decided it was time for me to do something. So I started, doing the usual thing, getting involved locally and, out in the streets and that kind of thing. And in 2007, made my first film, 9/11 New World Rising. And it was, at the time, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't see in other 9/11 films that I wanted to be put in a film, be out there. And so that's why I made that film. And then subsequently later on, all that stuff ended up being in many other films and kind of made it a moot point. But then you... Fast forward a little bit, right after that film came out in 2007, I started my radio show, and I've been broadcasting now for almost 6 years. And in that time, since 9/11 New World Rising, I've made 3 other full-length films, The Secret Right 1 and 2, and also my newest film, The Lost Secrets of Ancient America, Volume 1, and we're also working on the Volume 2 right now. But it's the thing I've really learned in all of this is that even though a lot of these topics seem to be separated, UFOs or government conspiracies or, whatever the topic may be, there seems to be this thing where a lot of people create different boxes to put these things in, and really they all connect together. And that's been one of the biggest, most valuable things I've learned in all of this is that when I started making this film that I've been working on now and working on Volume 2 about the Rockwall and also lost civilizations in the Americas, I never thought it would tie back to sort of the end of the 9/11 stuff or the end of any of the other things that I had researched, and it absolutely does, and that's what makes this stuff so fascinating.
And what's the name of your radio show?
It's called The Global Reality, and it's at my website, theglobalreality.com. People can also just search my name, Josh Reeves, in Google, and it's the first one that comes up. And we usually just talk about news, also read books on air and give people my opinion on that. It's kind of a different type of show. It's uncensored too. If you don't like a lot of 4-letter words and that kind of thing, it's probably not your cup of tea. But it's definitely it definitely is a lot of different topics we get in there. I think people will learn a lot from it because I just try to bring what I normally do with my normal day-to-day stuff, which is research and trying to find the truth out myself. With the radio show, in the best possible way I can, try to bring that and relate that to the audience, and people seem to get something from it just because they feel like they're not alone and there's somebody else out there that's trying to find answers for all this stuff too. And
how often do you air?
Monday through Friday at midnight Central Standard Time.
Oh wow! So you do it every day, almost.
Yeah, and then a lot of interviews and stuff like this on the weekends too. So yeah, it's 7 days a week for me.
Wow. Okay, and plus that and all the research you're doing, that's
yeah, and films and also doing. We're also about to launch a new online TV channel called Museon TV. That's about to launch in the next few weeks. We also have. I'm doing a live presentation in Houston, September 29th. They're bringing in Dr. Sam Osmanovich, the guy who discovered the Bosnian pyramids, to see this presentation, as well as representatives from 5 different universities. And we're also planning a dig at the Rockwall as well as soon as we find a piece of property and a place to do it. So, yeah, I'm very, very busy.
Wow. Okay. And people can get your films off the website?
Yeah, they can buy the DVDs or the Blu-rays there. They can also get digital downloads and get them instantly. So if people want to see the newest film, The Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1, they can get that right there. And we'll also do a special thing just for your listening audience. You know, the first 20 people that buy a DVD will get a free digital download of the film. So there you go.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about Rockwall a little bit. Now, it is a town in Texas.
Yeah, it's a little suburb right outside of Dallas. And I remember going there quite a bit when I was a kid because my grandparents lived not far from there. So I spent a lot of time there around the area growing up, all through my life. And it's just a little small community there. And, now it's grown up quite a bit. But it's up until about a year or two ago, it was the richest county in Texas and also the smallest county. I mean, the county of Rockwall only encompasses the area of this town. And it's so strange. I've never been able to find a logical explanation nor another example of it. And it's a strange thing that just this, the city and the county all exist in this one spot. And that's where you find this 20-mile diameter wall that's buried 7 stories under the town of Rockwall, Texas, that's leveled at 550 feet above sea level, the entire structure. No matter how the terrain changes, this structure is leveled at 550 feet above sea level. That alone nixes the Smithsonian's idea that this was a natural formation, which they deemed in 1927 and has not been challenged ever since, even though we've had all sorts of advances in archaeological technology, stuff like LIDAR, ground-penetrating radar, but it's never been challenged. And, this was discovered when they first started setting up the town, and the farmers were all arguing over who was going to have naming rights to the town. And right around that time, they started trying to set up water wells for their farms. And all these farmers are discovering that every time they dig down to try to get groundwater, they would hit these rock structures. And when they started excavating them out, they found walls. And so they all got together and said, what is this? What are we going to do? And they brought in the guys who had founded the town about a year ago. They were 2 gentlemen that moved to Texas from Virginia and Tennessee. They were both Freemasons. And when they saw the stacked cast stones of the rock wall, along with the geopolymer mortar substance that holds these bricks together, instantly they said, boys, none of you get naming rights to the town. All of you can't lay claim to this because this is absolute proof right here that there were people here long before us. So that's why the name of the town became Rockwall.
Okay. And now, when you're going down, it's more of a flat. It's a wall, but it's like almost like a roof, isn't it?
No, it's not a roof. The wall is a fully sustained wall. It goes down 7 stories. And the stones get bigger the deeper you go down.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is it's got a buttress effect built into it. There's major engineering that went into this. Engineering skills that we've really only acquired in the last, say, 100 years are found in this rock wall. Things like the buttressing effect. It's built to handle and carry live loads, meaning it can sustain the weight of something very, very heavy being placed upon it for long periods of time. It also has piezoelectrical properties. This is due to the crystalline makeup of the wall. It's really calling it a rock wall is a misnomer because it's more of a crystalline wall. This thing, when you hit the wall with low-frequency oscillations, low-frequency waves, it oscillates, begins to shake, and begins to produce electrical currents. When they had the last dig there in the late 90s, they found this out because they were doing some digging, and they had a backhoe up on top of the wall, and the low-frequency vibrations from the digger's engine caused the entire 20-mile diameter wall to start oscillating and vibrating, producing a high-pitched sound and throwing off electricity. Wow. So what we have here is we have something that not only produces energy, but also can withstand something very, very heavy being placed on top of it. This is why it's led a lot of people to speculate this may be some sort of, ancient UFO launching pad or something of that nature. But it appears, whatever it was, to have a variety of uses and a variety of uses through time. It's so old, somewhere in the 200 to 400,000 year old range, that you can see when you start to dig. And when we have our dig, when we found a piece of property and get that going, we'll be able to show you in some of the coming films and on my coming TV station the layers of this thing. Because when you start to dig at the first top of the layers, you start to see a very different building style and building material that's employed in the wall once you start to go deeper down. And what you realize is that this thing is so old and it's been around for so long that people who came after the original builders of this thing found this and just built onto it and added onto it with whatever the current building materials were that were in use at that time. And it's very incredible to see that, because you can see that as you get to the very top of the wall, the most current additions to it, it's literally a concrete structure substance. It's very, very close. It's not our modern concrete, but it's very, very close to the modern concrete we use today. So it's unbelievable to see just the layers of this. And also when they another thing, when they were digging this thing out last time, they thought they kept having water problems. Water was coming up from the ground, but they had already passed the water table, so they couldn't figure out why there was so much water coming out of this. But the soil analysis shows that the rock wall was covered in a catastrophic event that happened somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico in the range of 11 to 12,000 years ago. Now, science has multiple times shown conclusive evidence that there was an extinction level event, or an event that at least caused the Younger Dryas or the mini ice age to occur. Mm-hmm. And this is what undoubtedly, they say from the soil analysis, covered the wall. So it was covered so quickly and in such a catastrophic event that when you start digging down to the bottom, you start to find not only shark's teeth embedded into the bricks of the wall, but you find fresh sand dollars that when you crack them open, they have fresh meat inside of them, because the salt water has been preserved in these layers and layers of mud and debris packed underground for years and years and years, and it made it basically airtight in a little in situ formation that's been preserved. And that's how we know undoubtedly that not only did the wall serve as some sort of structure, and as we said, possibly some landing pad, but also a seawall, because it's clear that the oceans came right up to that point in the time when this thing was in its heyday.
And how far from the ocean is it now?
From here, how long does it take to get from, because I live right outside Dallas. Probably it's about 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, 400 or 500 miles, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And what's interesting, too, is that when they've been able to see this through satellite views that show you terrains, you can see some of this stuff kind of on Google Earth now, but they can see where this blue shale that covers the wall, which is a result of this seawater covering it, they can see where this blue shale and the water receded all the way back down from exactly where Rockwall is, all the way down back to the ocean. Those deposits of that blue shale are still there that show the water's recession. It's amazing.
Huh. And this blue shale is something you have to get through to get to the wall, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what makes it interesting about the History Channel and their show they're supposedly going to have in November about the wall, because they said in the news articles that they put in the local papers that they were going to be there for a week. And I know for a fact from the people I've talked to that have done digs, it takes months and months to break through this blue shale. So I really wouldn't expect the truth out of that show.
And that I believe that's America Unearthed, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I heard something about them doing it. Didn't know if it was the same one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Obviously, if they're only giving it a week's time, they're probably just going around and collecting stories, and that's that. I would think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not going to be able to find out again anything in just a week of looking at it, because it takes weeks and sometimes months to break through that stuff. Also, the analysis that it takes a lot of time to do that. My biggest thing that we're trying to achieve right now, besides getting a dig going, is getting some solid mapping of this thing done, because it just doesn't exist. LiDAR mapping or something of that nature. That's really our big goal, because what that's going to give us is it's going to give us the ability to see things that no one's ever seen. So we'll see stuff that's not only the wall itself, but other structures that may be in the area that we haven't yet identified, because there has been many reports of similar smaller walls being found in some of the adjacent towns and counties around Rockwall.
Wow. Okay. Is it like structure-wise, is it like the Great Wall of China type of a wall, or how would you describe it?
It's, I've seen a lot of, recreations and representations of a lot of the ancient cities and fortifications from the ancient Middle East and some of the ancient biblical lands, and some stuff like the Temple of Solomon and some of these various old structures. They exist. You can look at some of the artist representations of those, and I find it very interesting that the structure of the wall itself resembles those in many ways. It's not really a great wall of China type thing. It's got, it's rectangular. It's got 4 corners, 4 sides. It goes in a 20-mile diameter around the city. But it's interesting because in the southwestern corner of this thing, you have a triangular shaped wall that matches with a cube perfectly next to it. This thing essentially has the golden ratio built into it. It has the Pythagorean theorem built into the wall.
Wow.
This was built with a level of engineering sophistication that belies anything else that's ever been found, and not only in terms of scale, but also in terms of the material that it's made out of, because that's what is fascinating to me. It's made out of these strange, in some cases, minerals that we haven't even discovered only in the last 200 years, especially something like niobium. Again, that's where the structural engineering thing comes in. We use niobium. It's extracted from an element called columbite, and we use niobium to reinforce things like pipelines, jet engines, rocket engines, big hadron colliders like CERN, MRI machines. We use it to basically for 2 reasons: its conductivity and also its ability to disperse heat very rapidly. And so in the Rockwall, we have the elements of zircon, garnet. Zircon and garnet are the 2 most abundant materials in the Rockwall. Zircon, garnet, tourmaline. We also have starlite, rutile, titanite, brookite, and niobium. Now, titanite and brookite are both used by us to create titanium. Today, it's very strong. So in combination with all of these crystal materials that have very, very, very hard ratings as far as their Mohr scale ratings and all this stuff, these individual minerals can only be extracted from whatever type of material they naturally grow in, which the majority of the time it's usually quartz crystal or some other. But I have a lot of examples. We're going to show examples of these stones in the presentation I'm going to be doing next month, which we're going to be videoing as well to put out. But when you look at these examples of these minerals that the Rockwall is made up of, the stones themselves are made up of, it would take an arduous process, a process that is foreign to us today, to be able to pick out all of the little bits that make up these elements like titanite, brookite, and then you would have to throw away all the material that you pulled it out of in some kind of either a chemical or some kind of process that, again, we don't know anything about, to then mix together and cast these stones with. And then, again, by some other technique that is foreign to us, they were able to blend all of these minerals together, create bricks, and somehow not allow the molecular structures of the individual minerals to bond. They all remain independent in situ in these stones. Now, what struck me was the fact that if this was true and you extracted all this to make these stones, you would do it, number one, for its absolute hardness, absolute how long it would last, and its resilience. It would be basically an indestructible wall or material that you were making these out of. And it also was odd that none of the source materials like columbite or quartz are found in the Rockwall stones at all. So I'm thinking, they had to do something with this. And then that's when we come to the mortar substance that the stones are held together with. The stones are held together with what they have deemed a geopolymer mortar. And it's a mortar that's made from 3 different types of crystals that have been gathered from different locations scattered across the earth. These people couldn't figure out when they started doing the analysis why these quartz, and that explains it right there. It explains it because tourmaline is not found anywhere near Rockwall. You have to go hundreds of thousands of miles away to get it. It's found in places like Afghanistan, Pakistan. It's also found in places that are in Pakistan and Afghanistan. The mines it's found at is found right on the 33rd degree parallel, which is also where the Rockwall is located. So you start to see that all of these materials are not found naturally. There's no rock at all in Rockwall, Texas, or this area of North Texas at all. These materials would have had to have been sought out over large distances. And one of the things we show and talk about in the Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1 is just where I believe that these stones were quarried at. And I believe I found the location of it. And after we have a dig, we're going to be able to cross-reference the materials together and get some hard, conclusive evidence on that. And when we do, it's going to be a game changer.
And there are people who will claim this is a natural formation, right?
Right.
And is there any process that could possibly make this naturally?
No, again, as I said, there absolutely is not, because even the people that say it's a natural formation will say they've never seen another one like it anywhere on the planet.
It's just what they used to dismiss it with.
Yes, because the evidence shows, especially like I said, when you look at I went out and gathered samples of all the individual materials that the rock wall's made out of. I got zircon, I got garnet, I got all of them. And people can actually go, if we have a Global Reality Facebook page, and people can add us there. If they go to my website, they'll see it. And if you add us there on Facebook, you can actually see the picture of all the minerals that make up the rock wall stones that I collected. And it's fascinating because if you look really close at the picture, the little shiny stuff that you see embedded, the little crystalline-looking stuff that you see embedded in these large stones, that's the material that they took out of whatever it's embedded in and then mixed together to cast these stones. Meaning that they had to have gone through, it would have taken the amount of labor, and again, the processes to do it, which are foreign to us, even with our modern technology, it's just staggering. But there's no other way that these, like tourmaline specifically, tourmaline only forms in one way naturally. It forms on the outside perimeter of quartz crystals, and that's the only place it forms. And it's very valuable. In some forms, watermelon tourmaline can be on par with almost any. It's one of the most expensive semi-precious stones you can get. It's very valuable, and that's because it only forms in very few places on Earth on certain conditions. And usually it's when quartz is already formed, and after the quartz is formed over millions and millions of years, the tourmaline and stuff will start to form on the outside perimeter of it. That is the absolute, science will tell you, it's the absolute only way tourmaline can grow at all. So it does not grow that way or form that way in the rock wall. It's just ground up as a part of the bricks. That cannot happen naturally.
Wow. So now you say, now how deep is this? Where's the bottom of this? At what level?
It's about 70, 80 feet, something like that, 7 stories, somewhere in the area there. Nobody's really been absolutely all the way down to the bottom yet, but that's what I plan to do.
Wow, okay. And how tall is it estimated to be?
At least... from the top, very top of it, because again, there's been some additions to this thing. From the very, very top of it, where you can strike it with a pole, down to the bedrock, 7 stories.
Oh, okay, all right. Wow, that is really immense.
Yeah, and there's one area, and I'd love to excavate this area. I know where it's at, but I doubt we could get permission to do it. But there's a picture. We only have one picture of it, and it's in my film. People can see it if they go and buy a download of the film. There's a watchtower, a thing they call the watchtower, and that's really the only thing you can describe this as. And I've never seen anything like it. I've seen what the other structures and stuff of the wall that they found. It looks like a wall, but this is something peculiar. It looks like a watchtower, and it's got a brick cut out for someone to watch out of it. And it looks like a spiral, just like a spiral one. It goes down really, really, really far. I think someone ended up turning the thing into a well or something at some point.
Wow. Of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did. What else would you do?
All right, so you said the Smithsonian dismissed this back in the 20s?
Yeah, 1927. What it was around that time, you had, we discussed this in the film as well, you had a world famous archaeologist. Many people have been given the title of, the real Indiana Jones, but this guy was really the real Indiana Jones because he was going out and finding things that nobody else was finding. He was challenging the accepted scientific dogma of the time. He was kind of your truther conspiracy theorist guy of the time. His name was Count Byron de Prorock, and he came to Rockwall and was brought out to examine the wall, and he was freaking out and flipping out and going crazy because he said that he had never, ever, in all his travels all over the world, ever seen stones like that in any other place except the ancient city of Carthage, which was an ancient Phoenician Canaanite city that he unearthed. And so what's fascinating is, as people will see in the film, this Phoenician Canaanite connection has been found all over the United States, as far-flung places as New Hampshire and also Oklahoma. We show a lot of the different places it's found. There were these guys were here long ago because they were also aware of the other civilization that was here long ago before that. And to just straight cut to the chase, I really believe, and the evidence supports this, that the Rockwall is one of these 8 cities that's described in the ancient Mesopotamian text that known as the Sumerian King List, one of the 8 pre-flood cities ruled over by these supposed Anunnaki gods for 400,000 years prior to the Great Flood. At 200,000 years was when they started building their cities. In Rockwall, a 2.5-ton garnet stone was found that had strange hieroglyphs on it that have never been identified anywhere else. In Illinois, they found a coin in a well that was in a soil strata right at the time period in which these cities were supposedly built. It was in a soil strata that dated to 220,000 years, and it shows a Columbia-looking woman holding a torch, kind of like the Statue of Liberty, and then it has this script all around the sides of it that match this 2.5-ton garnet stone that was found in Rockwall that's now in the possession of a very prominent Texas congressman.
Okay, I was going to ask you if there was any writing or any glyphs or anything embedded into the wall. Is that the only place that you find it?
No, there was some other stones found called the Hanby stones, and they had some strange glyphs on it. All the stuff that has been found so far has basically disappeared into Never Never Land or Smithsonian Land or wherever it is that it goes. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to do with the dig that we're trying to conduct and get together. We're hoping to be able to do this at a location that has not as yet been excavated, in hopes of finding some of this stuff that supposedly has been found, to document it, because a lot of the stuff that happened in the past digs just wasn't documented properly. We're going to shoot all this stuff ourselves. We're going to have multiple cameras on this. Every step of the dig that we're going to do is going to be documented so that we can actually show people, on film, analysis of what the wall is. We want to duplicate the paleomagnetic survey that was done on the wall by the gentleman, the doctor from the A&M University. I'm sorry, from to University of Texas, Dr. Wolf Goss. He did a paleomagnetic survey on the wall, and he got so freaked out by his findings, he won't allow his findings to be published until after he's dead. Because, and I talked to the people who were there at the dig to find out exactly what it was he found, and he said, well, he wouldn't really say, but all he would say is that for whatever reason, and for reasons that he can't explain, this wall seems to have a magnetic resonance signature that's greater than the magnetic resonance of the entire planet Earth. And it wigged him out.
Well, I mean, structures like the Great Pyramid are supposed to enhance stuff like that as well, aren't they?
I think some of the structures, there have been. I think there has been some that have found. I know particularly, I think that's why Dr. Sam Osmanagic, who discovered the Bosnian pyramids, is so interested in my work and wants to see my presentation, is because he's found a lot of similar things with the Bosnian pyramids that I found with the Rockwall. He's found that it produces piezoelectrical energy, and there's an energy beam that comes out of it. And I absolutely believe that the Rockwall, in combination with probably some of these other ancient sites, pyramids, and what have you around the world, is some kind of ancient worldwide free energy grid. I think it's what it was. I think that's why it's on these ley lines, or on these parallel lines, like the 33rd degree parallel, where Roswell's also located at. That's also said to be why there's so many UFO crashes and strange things that happen around the 33rd degree parallel, because it's this navigation point, this energy point, where if you navigate around it, around the entire globe, you can basically pull energy off of this naturally from a natural energy grid that goes around the Earth. And that there absolutely is proof positive that the pyramids are energy generators, or were energy generators, have the capacity to do that. Many other sites. And in Ohio, you have something, the Serpent Mound there. And I'm hoping to go there if we get funding for Volume 2 of our film in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping to go there to get some footage of the Serpent Mound. We talk about it a bit in Volume 1. But the fascinating thing I discovered about this thing is that, just like the Rockwall, which is also said to have been built near some ancient asteroid crater, the Serpent Mound in Ohio is also built on an ancient asteroid crater that also has rare minerals underneath it. It has a big abundance of iridium, which right now is being there's a lot of tests going on to try and turn iridium into basically a renewable energy source. And underneath the Ohio Serpent Mound, with this mineral, you also have, again, a large amount of piezoelectrical energy. So it seems that all of these ancient sites were built not only as structures, but they were also built to provide energy and power to the people, whoever they were, that were inhabiting.
Now I also heard a story years ago, and I might have it wrong. Maybe it is Rockwall, but I heard a story about there being a rock wall found underground in Oklahoma when they were digging a mine or something. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard several stuff, of Oklahoma. I don't know if I've heard about a wall being found there. I've heard of some Phoenician-type fortresses being found there. I've heard of. It wouldn't surprise me in the least bit, because I've actually located. There's another similar rock wall structure that's been found in Alabama that runs underneath the Tennessee River. We talk about that a bit in Volume 1 of the film. I also found another rock wall. I haven't gone to investigate it yet. There was a New York Times article that was printed in, I believe, 1928 or 1938. I can't remember which one it is, but there was a real way far back, and it was the only article I could ever find printed on this, about a 20-mile diameter wall being found in Texas that was thicker, they said in this report, thicker than the Great Wall of China. And they found evidence that there was some sort of mineral extraction process going on in this area, and there was a hill up top that had a temple room in it that had idols. And come to find out, this location is only about 100 miles away from the location I have found to be the quarry for the Rockwall stones. So it's unbelievable. There absolutely are more of these out there, and we haven't found them yet. And I think that if we can expose one of them, in the case of this Rockwall, it may bring about an ability for people to come forward that know things about other similar things that may be out there.
All right. We got to take a quick 45-second break. We'll be right back with Josh Reeves.
The opinions expressed by the host and guests on Where Did the Road Go are their own and do not represent those of WVBR or its management. Join us on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com, where you can send us questions for our live guests via email or the live chat room. You can also check out our upcoming schedule, blog, links section, book reviews, videos, and links to our Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, and much more. That's wheredidtheroadgo.com.
And we've been talking to Josh Reeves primarily about Rockwall, Texas, and the structures there. Is there anything in the middle of this structure, like inside the wall, that's been discovered?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that, because that is what I've zeroed in on, and again, you can see this in the film. That's what I have zeroed in on as being one of the main reasons why the Smithsonian's deeming of this to be a natural formation are wrong, because at the time in which they saw this supposed wall and deemed it a natural formation, at that time there were no satellite images, there were no mapping of this. People just had heard there was a wall structure, and they assumed that everything that they found underground had something to do with this. And what we have the ability to see for ourselves now is I have the only mapping that's ever been done it was a by hand map that the guy who did the last dig at Rockwall created. He did this map, unbelievable work. He spent like 5 years of his life. This is not a joke. He spent 5 years of his life risking his life, trespassing, sneaking on to various properties. He would go out every night and do a little bit, and go out another night and do a little bit. And by hand, he had a metal rod, and he went out by hand and walked and poked this metal rod in the ground, and would strike the wall every time he would walk. And so he would trace his path walking, and he would have a map, and he would mark on the map exactly where this location was. And over the course of 4 or 5 years, he created this map of the entire wall. And what we find after we take the report that came out from the city of Rockwall in 1933, they released a map. And it's amazing when you put their coordinates in and the locations in to like a Google Earth or something to this day. It's amazing how accurate their mapping was at that time. And what I was startled to find is that when you put the map on Google Earth and you overlay it, and then you combine these sites where the Smithsonian and others were said to have came and given their opinion on the wall that it was natural, we see that these locations and these structures, whatever they are not actually the wall itself, but structures inside of the wall itself, like it located in the middle of it. And so 3 of the locations where prominent scientists came, and I've been able to prove, I've been the first person to come out with this information, and the first person to conclusively prove this, and people can see it in the film, that the structures that were examined, that the scientific opinion of the wall is based on, were based on structures that are not the wall, but structures found within it.
Okay, are they man-made structures or created structures or natural formations?
They look to be a bit of that's the strange thing. They look to be a bit of natural, but they look to be a bit of man-made.
So you find that a lot in ancient ruins around the world where they built upon something that was already there, like a structure in the landscape.
Right.
But
it's just interesting because, again, there's not supposed to be any inherent rock in that area at all whatsoever.
Right. Wow.
Geologically.
Now, as far as giants go, have giants have any connection to this area?
Yeah, and that's another one of the crazy things. I came at this from the standpoint, I first wanted to make a film about the Rockwall. That's all the film was going to be. It wasn't going to be a big involved thing. It was just going to be a movie on the Rockwall. That's what I set out to do. And in the course of doing the research, I said, okay, if this thing is not a natural formation, then I have to find all the evidence, that I can find either way. So upon doing that, what I started doing was going back and looking at all the news reports, and all the old news reports from when the Rockwall was originally found talked about not only a giant skeleton being found that was summarily whisked away by the Smithsonian, but also an abode, a house of a giant that was found underneath a cave. We read all the news reports and stuff from this in the film, and this newspaper, after reporting this stuff, was bought out, shut down, and no more stories ever appeared like this in the area. And so I said, okay, all right, well, is there a precedent for this? And I was blown away to find out that anywhere where things like mounds and stuff were found, there were said to be mounds in the area of Rockwall when they first started coming here. Anywhere where mounds are found, generally they found giant skeletons. And generally they found structures, strange structures, with advanced building techniques, or they have found inscriptions, strange hieroglyphs that don't belong to any of the native tribes. I started seeing a pattern where, wait a second, this is not just Rockwall. This whole thing extends across the entire United States of America, and we had civilizations and people here rising and falling long before the days of Christopher Columbus or colonial America or the Native Americans or anything else. And long even probably before the Clovis people and all of that stuff. We had civilizations here very far back in time. We had people that were coming to places like Michigan and mining copper and sending it back over to the Middle East in the time of Solomon. They've found pieces of this copper all over the Middle East, all over the ancient Middle East. They've found mounds in Saudi Arabia that match to a T. Mounds they found like places in Moundville, Alabama, which we visit in Volume 1 of the film. And you also start to see the fact that you have this ancient tradition of what happens to the soul after death, which is talked about in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and also talked about in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and it also is reflected in some of the rituals conducted by the Freemasons. Now, this belief that the soul travels through a journey before going to its other location it's going to go to is mirrored in a lot of the ancient earthworks, like the Newark earthworks in Ohio, and also in stuff like the alignments of the pyramids or the mounds. Rather, we're the only country on Earth that calls them mounds. Everywhere else, mounds are called pyramids.
Right. That's
where a lot of confusion comes in people's minds. But these mounds in Moundville, Alabama, that are located on the 33rd degree parallel are all aligned to the solstices, the equinoxes, as many of these sites across America are. The Serpent Mound in Ohio is. Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, which we visit in Volume 2, all have the same alignments, even though they're located hundreds of miles across the country from each other. And they all are aligned to things like the Cygnus constellation. They're also aligned to the Deneb portal And all of these people have this specific culture and a specific religious belief that's mirrored only in ancient Middle Eastern religious beliefs, that at a certain time of year between November and April, you can go to one of these sites where they're aligned and walk through some sort of stargate or a portal that takes you to the star system Deneb and goes to the other side. And it's fascinating to me that if there's nothing to this, then why did they spend 300 years building Moundville, Alabama, and then for the people to just up and disappear? And then all the way across the country into Mexico at Chaco Canyon, same thing. 12 generations it took to build these 7-story structures with little doors that only 2-foot tall people could fit through. And all the people there, everybody disappeared off the face of the planet after the buildings were done being conducted. It's an unbelievable thing, and there's so many unexplained answers. And it's not just Rockwall, it's not just Texas, it's all across the country, and it's all across the world. And we start to see that there is an absolute connection to other unexplained structures and building techniques and styles that have been found all over the globe.
So why do you think it is that the mainstream of archaeology ignore these pieces of evidence?
Well, it comes down to one thing. The main ideology that's put out there is, this, as I mentioned earlier, this ideal of isolationism. Isolationism versus diffusionism. And isolationism says that cultures that were separated couldn't have any contact with each other. In fact, the Smithsonian says that to this day, that cultures that were simply across the Mississippi River from each other could have had no contact with each other. It's an unbelievably archaic way of thinking, but unfortunately, that is still the mindset that the scientific community is still operating on. So when you go into a diffusionist mindset, meaning you start to show people at least the possibility that, look at this, look at all of these various things connect, because people don't think to try and reference certain archaeological finds with things that were found in other parts of the world, because why would they? They're taught that, this civilization only happened in this part of the world. So why would you ever think to cross-reference anything that was found in the United States, for instance, with any artifacts or texts or anything that, say, came from ancient Mesopotamia? The scientific community would never do that. Any scientist, that would be the last thing they would ever think to do, because they're not taught to do that. But when I have done that, and I did that for the Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1, and you'll see that in the film, I show you that when you do cross-reference these items found in the United States with items found in ancient Mesopotamia, Babylon, Sumeria, Egypt, you start to see massive connections, not only in the style of the building, but also in the text, in the writing, and in the references to specific gods and deities that existed during that time. For instance, they found at 2.5 a little small inscription in Alabama in a Cherokee burial mound behind the head of a red-haired giant, a little inscription that's been misinterpreted. They've said, it means for Judea, but actually when you look at it as for Gudea, you see that Gudea was a Sumerian ruler who was a temple builder who was given plans by the gods to build these temples. And that's what the same story that all of the ancient unexplained buildings that we see around the world, like the ones in South America, Sacsayhuaman, all those, you see the same stories carried on with all of these. They were built by human labor with technology, information, knowledge, and planning that came from the gods themselves. And that's where the connection comes in, because that's the same case with Rockwall. It's the same case with all these. Yes, it does appear to be built by human hands, but the engineering technologies that are being employed are beyond anything that we even have today. So it makes sense that when these ancient stories tell us that, yes, man built these, but they had help, it makes it pretty clear what that is.
Okay. Now, you want to tell people a little bit about what the Smithsonian really is? Because I don't think most people are... most people have heard of the Smithsonian, but they're not really aware of what it does. I don't think most people are really aware that it's part government funded, but not completely.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. There's two sides to the Smithsonian. There is the Smithsonian Institution itself, and then there's the Smithsonian Museums. Now, the Smithsonian Museums themselves are funded by taxpayer dollars, and they are ran and controlled by the United States government. But that's where it ends. But what has happened is that when people hear Smithsonian Institution, they believe that the Smithsonian Institution is government-controlled, working on their behalf, and it absolutely is not. It's a privately funded, privately owned group, exactly like our Federal Reserve is. The Federal Reserve is not a United States government entity. It's controlled by outside interests, and the Smithsonian Institution is the same way. Most of the funders from the Smithsonian Institution are British in origin. A lot of the big financial types have much invested in it. They have offices in almost every country in the world. That way, if new discoveries are found, they get their people out first, and they can either choose to whitewash it, cover it up, or run some sort of campaign against it or what have you. But what they've done is they've given themselves an ability to be able to decide for the public before the public ever has a chance to know any of this stuff exists, whether or not they get to know what it is or not, and they're deciding for us. And it wasn't originally set up for that. It was set up originally by James Smithson to collect knowledge, to store it for future generations that would have a better context and a better understanding for this stuff than they did at the time in which he was alive. And right after his death, they turned it into the absolute polar opposite of that by creating this thing where it wasn't about getting the truth and getting the information out to people. It was about holding it within itself, and that's what happened every time anybody has gone and tried to get pictures of stuff that connects to any of this stuff. They had the coin with the 200,000-year-old script on it in their possession, and said, "Oh yeah, we have it, no problem." And as soon as some researchers went out to get video and footage of it, we don't know where that is. We lost it.
And what would be their motive for doing something like that?
Well, the motive comes from the fact that when you start to see the evidence that there were civilizations here in this part of the world long before what we've been told, the whole thing starts to upset the apple cart. The whole thing starts to pull that fabric out on the sweater and slowly unravel it, because if there's a problem with that, what else is there a problem with, and what else haven't we been told the truth about? And I think it's really a containment thing. It's really about keeping this story. It really goes back so far. It goes back even to the foundations of the United States of America itself. When this country was first founded, the scientifically agreed upon belief was that a separate race and culture of people called the mound builders built the mounds and the structures found here in the United States. Then after they had manifest destiny and deemed that the Native Americans were simply savages and they were worth being wiped out, and they had nothing worth preserving. They did that, and once they took over everything the Native American had and had their people out investigating, they started to realize, oh, wait a second here. This is well beyond the technological prowess of the Native Americans. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to somehow change the scientifically held opinion back around and say, no, we were wrong. It actually was Native Americans who did this, and we messed up, and our bad, sorry, so let's give them some land and make it all good. That's exactly what they did. Because Thomas Jefferson was really the first archaeologist in this country. He was excavating mounds on his own property, and he discovered in the city of Alexandria in Egypt, the city of Alexandria in Virginia, which took its name from Egypt. Mm-hmm. He found a city grid structure underneath the town that already existed long before anyone had came there. And what he did was he copied this buried city grid underground, built the city grid of Alexandria, Virginia out of it, and then took all the credit. Because he didn't want anybody to know that it was already there and had been there for thousands of years. And he's like, well, nobody's going to know the difference. We'll just put some dirt on this, and they'll never find out. It's just unbelievable how long this cover-up's been going on.
Do you think it's an organized cover-up, or if it just happens in spurts here and there, like it just happens to coincide with other cover-ups?
No, it's been an ongoing thing that they've been doing since the foundations of this country. It goes back to Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon was responsible for bringing Rosicrucianism to the United States of America. Many people believe him to also be William Shakespeare. But Sir Francis Bacon was a high-level occultist. He was a high-level magician. He also was friends with Dr. John Dee, who was the original 007. He was an in-house astrologer to Queen Elizabeth II. He channeled all sorts of things from these spirits using this Enochian magic system that supposedly he got from a tablet from Solomon's Temple. And he was telling Sir Francis Bacon all sorts of things that Sir Francis Bacon then later based his book, The New Atlantis, on. And supposedly in these channelings, this entity told Sir Francis Bacon that the New Atlantis would be found on the ashes of the old Atlantis which was in what they called at that time the New World, and that the British Empire, in order to expand itself and to fully achieve its global domination, would have to get to this New World first, this new Atlantis first, to set up the colonies so that the British colonies could rule and control it. And that indeed is what happened. But he predicted skyscrapers, flying machines, robots, all of this stuff that you can read in Sir Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, that talks specifically about, yes, our country is the new Atlantis. It's built upon the Atlantis of old. And we are going to, at some point, come down to a decision, just like the old Atlanteans did, of whether or not we are going to bring ourselves together and continue to unite as a people for the people, or whether we're going to continue to choose power just for the sake of power, and which will end up being our downfall and our destruction. And that's one of the things I think the cover-up stems from, is they do not want people to find out that the ultimate goal of the United States of America is to bring it crashing down just like the Atlantis of old did, and they have been planning this for hundreds of years.
What would be the benefit of causing it to crash down?
Because it's a fulfillment of this ancient prophecy of the ancient belief system that they believe is a script that the world has to play out on. And everything in the world, all our governments, all of the daily activities of wars and everything else go to make sure that this end is achieved. I mean, I don't understand it, and I don't get it, but it's sick, it's sadistic, but that's the case.
How many people do you think are aware of that who are actually in power? And how many of them are just going along with the status quo?
Very few. I mean, most of these guys that are doing this are not really in the public eye. The ones that we see on a daily basis are really just serving the overall agenda. You can see traces of it in their connections to various secretive orders and groups and the handshakes they do and all this stuff. But for the most part, our politicians and stuff, they're just really middle management. These guys are just the ones that appear to be in charge when there's a whole other level of charge above them that you don't even see.
Okay. Are you aware of the Egyptian artifacts and stuff found in the Grand Canyon?
Absolutely. That was another cover-up by the Smithsonian there as well. Yeah, they found...
Didn't they originally publish it and then deny that it existed or something?
Yes. Yeah, they absolutely did. Because of some of the things they found, once they started going deeper in there, they started finding artifacts that were not just of the Egyptian leaning stuff, but they found, ancient Sumerian reliefs, Babylonian. So they were finding stuff from all sorts of different epochs and eras and cultures and countries. And this is mirrored also not very far from there is Chaco Canyon, where I went. And at Chaco Canyon, they found evidence of almost every known world religion at the time in this place, even though it's in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. So, yeah, we start to see that whoever these people were, they definitely had an affinity and a connection back to those ancient and old Far East and Near East countries and religions of old.
And so the Smithsonian, when did this guy die that founded it?
James Smithson? Oh, I couldn't tell you exactly what year he died. I don't know for sure. People could just look it up. I don't really know.
I mean, roughly, though, like 1900s, 1800s?
Oh, gosh, I want to say 1800s. I don't really know for sure. I could be wrong. I really don't know. Top of my head.
So did it shift immediately when he died, or did it take some time?
Yeah, it seems to have shifted immediately. It seemed that some of his other... Because the Freemasons tie heavily into this into this whole research and this whole cover. At every turn they're there, and at every turn the Smithsonian's there, and people will see all the evidence of that in Volume 1 of the film, because I showed extensively, right down to the fact that one of these red-haired giants was found in a Masonic lodge where they had it in there using it for ritual purposes. So that's one of the big secrets, and I talk about that and show that in the film, especially in Oklahoma, where all this Phoenician Canaanite stuff has been found. The Cherokee people there to this day even claim that that they had Phoenician heritage. And inside the world's largest Masonic cathedral, which is in Guthrie, Oklahoma, that I visited, they have all sorts of Atlantean references inside of this thing and references to Solomon's Temple. And it's just a fascinating thing when you see stuff like the swastikas in the basement, where they have a Native American room where they allow Native Americans to come in and play pool. And the swastika was used by Native Americans because the Native Americans got it from the originators of the swastika. It was a sun symbol, a peace symbol, and it originated with the Phoenicians and the Canaanites in the Middle East. And so when I saw this and realized that just a few miles from this lodge, they had found at the Spiro Mounds, which we talk about in the film, a red-haired giant in full armor buried not far from this place, I started to realize, well, there it is. They know full well there were Phoenician giants, the Amorites, Phoenician, Canaanites are all the same people. We talk about them extensively in the film. They were there, and they were in Oklahoma during that time. So if they were in Oklahoma during that time, it stands to reason that they were in all these other places as well, because the ancient text talk specifically about after the exodus of the Jews to Palestine. The Amorites were in that. It was Amorite territory at the time. And after the Amorites, what were left of them, which ones didn't get wiped out off the face of the planet, the rest of the ones that were left fled to their copper mines in the west. And that, again, goes back to what I was talking about earlier with this ancient copper mining going on in Michigan for many years prior to colonization.
So now we've found a lot of giant skeletons around this country. I don't know about the rest of the... Have we found as many around the rest of the world as we have in the U.S.?
That's a good question. They have been found all around the world. Yeah, indeed. And in fact, I found that the farther you go back in time and history, the larger they seem to get as far as being found. I mean, I found reports from like 1500 from France, and they're pulling out 25-footers and stuff. So
wow. So
so these are 9-10 footers they're finding here, but in Ohio, I mean, they literally found hundreds. There's what they call a giant graveyard in Ohio, and in fact, you're in New York. There's I mean, why do you think they call them the New York Giants? I mean, you've got a place in New York called Giants Mound. And it's
really?
Supposedly, it's a Giant's Grave, Giant's Mound. I think it is. It's a mound in the middle of a waterway. You can look it up, and supposedly there's a giant buried inside of it. And people just arbitrarily think, oh no, there's no connection to any of that stuff to the sports teams' names, but there always is. And that's what it is. It's all kinds of little references to this stuff. They full well know about this, and when you start to open up your mind to it after you watch my film, you'll be amazed at how many places you see it. I mean, stuff like that, the sports teams and everything. It's pretty fascinating.
Huh. The giants, for people who don't know, often, as you said, they range in height considerably. Many of them had red hair, correct?
Yeah, many of them did, but some of them didn't. Like the one found in Rockwall it was a black-haired variety, and that was something perplexing that I started to find, was that in some locations they had black hair, and in some cases they had red hair. But I thought this giant thing was really hogwash for a long time, because a lot of the pictures that are out there of supposed giants are fakes. I mean, most of the stuff that's on the internet are fakes, and that's done to create cognitive dissonance, so people don't know what's real and what isn't, and they do a good job at it. But when you do like I did in the film, we show you about a 15-minute segment where I go through, I don't know how many, at least 100. I found hundreds of articles going back at least 200 years in newspapers of these giant skeletons being found all over the United States. Now, you can't tell me that somebody has been conducting a 300-year hoax in newspapers just claiming they found giant skeletons for no reason. I mean, what would be the reasoning behind that? What would be the reason behind a 300-year hoax to claim that? There is no reason. And every time they find these things, again, oftentimes they're either whisked away by the Smithsonian or they crumble to dust right in their hands. But I was fascinated to find out that the Native American tradition is replete with the stories of a war between the savage, cannibalistic, dark-haired giants and these more benevolent, red-haired giants who came from somewhere in the east that seeded the tribes of the Native Americans and gave them a tribal structure that mirrored the 12 tribes of Israel identically.
Huh.
And they banded with the Native Americans eventually and fought this big war. And this is also, I was blown away to find out that this is also mirrored in the Mormon tradition when they talk this Lephites and the Nephite war of the Mormons, the Mormon stories. I was like, somebody asked me if I'd heard of this, and I said no. And they said, well, you should look it up. And I said, okay. So I looked it up, and I was like, wait a second, what? I had no idea that they had stories of a red-haired race battling a black-haired race. It's unbelievable. So, all over the place we start to see some of these have like double rows of teeth and 3 rows of teeth, and there does appear to be some that were friendly and some that were savage and cannibalistic. And the savage and cannibalistic ones are said to have been a leftover remnant after the Great Flood. They were leftover Atlanteans, and after the fall of Atlantis and everything was wiped out, the people that were left had no records, they had no knowledge of anything. They basically had to start over. So this is what where stories of ogres and giants and all the rest of this stuff comes from, and the red-haired giants actually come from, supposedly, from the story of the Nephilim and all the rest of that stuff.
Interesting. I didn't realize there were any with 3 rows of teeth. I knew a lot of them had 2 rows of teeth.
Yeah, there have been some that were found in Ohio. Some have had 3. Unbelievable.
Wow. And these things are big enough that people can actually fit the skulls over their own heads.
Oh yeah. There's one picture I have where these guys are pulling this one out with a wheelbarrow. And this thing looks like it's, I don't know, the head of this thing's like 3 feet tall.
Wow. And the fact that they can cover this up is rather astounding. I mean, they obviously existed with so many articles and so many discoveries. The fact that they could so completely cover it up is amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what is even more amazing than that. I found a quote by the gentleman from the Meriwether Clark, who was Clark from the Lewis and Clark expedition. I'm gonna be reading a book on my show really soon about this on air, and it's fascinating. I recently found out about it, so I can't really give you all the information on it, but the long and the short of it is, Meriwether Lewis was supposedly killed. They said he committed suicide, but supposedly he was murdered because there's a passage in his writings where he says, he talks about when they started coming across America, they were astounded to find not only these ancient civilizations, but they were finding giants. And they were finding giants that somehow by someone had been shackled up in the past with copper bracelets. Again, there's that copper thing. Someone had shackled these things, and he said in his words to be unleashed on mankind at some point in the future that will bring about in an apocalypse on mankind, the likes of which has never been seen. And so he hinted extensively to some hidden agenda to keep the knowledge of giants from us because of some plan in the future for governments of the world to unleash these things as weapons of mass destruction against the public.
Well, do you think that's something that still exists now, or?
Yeah, it's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah, well,
I know that when you look at where the wars are launched, as we were talking about earlier with the Smithsonian, why is it that the countries of the world that don't have Smithsonian offices in them, why is it that those are the countries that we're told are where the terrorists are? Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba. Go down the list. All of these sites, what was the other one over there? Can't remember the part of the world it's in, but anyway, in the Middle East. But all of these countries all have one thing in common. They have artifacts and things that go to prove this and show this stuff to be 100% true. And because they can't get in there and control the artifacts, they're deeming those countries and locations terrorist countries. I mean, it's no secret that during the invasion in 2003, Special Forces went into the Baghdad National Museum first, blew the doors off the vaults with C4, and took all of the ancient artifacts pertaining to the Sumerian and Babylonian civilizations.
Well, I would think that would only be part of the reason. I mean, because the other thing they all have in common is they're not on the World Bank. They're not on. They all have resources we don't control.
Yeah.
So I mean that is interesting. I did find that interesting that they went into Baghdad like that, went right after the museum. It didn't make any real sense to me when I saw that. Unless they were suddenly so interested in protecting these things. Do we know what happened to them after they took them from the museums?
A lot of them showed up at the Vatican. Some of them showed up on the side of a road near a military base in North Carolina, and the rest of them have disappeared, never been found.
By the side of a road?
Yeah, there was a bag of ancient cuneiform tablets that somebody, right near an Air Force base, somebody got conscious about or something, and they came from that raid. They were just found, just dumped on the side of the road in North Carolina.
That's weird. What happened to them after that?
Who knows?
All right. Tell people again, what's your website?
theglobalreality.com. They can also just go to Google and type in Josh Reeves, and they can get all my films and check out the radio show. And they can also donate if they want to donate to our work. We don't have funding from big corporations or anything else. We're funded strictly from people like myself who want to find the truth. So if you want to help us out and get a film or donate to our work, you can do it there at theglobalreality.com.
And you're doing a talk when?
September 29th at 2 o'clock, Houston, Texas, at the Hilton Southwest Ballroom.
Okay, is that part of an event?
Nope, it's just me. I'm the show. I'll be doing a 2-hour presentation, and we'll have Dr. Sam Osmanovich is going to be there to see it. So it's going to be an awesome thing.
Okay, and how much do your DVDs go for on the site?
The DVD is 30 and the Blu-ray is 35. You can get a low quality digital download for 20 and an HD Blu-ray quality download for 25.
Okay, all right. And the radio show is free. People can just tune in on the site.
Yep, we have a stream there as well, and if people want to hear the past shows, they can subscribe to our archives. It's very cheap, and again, all available there at theglobalreality.com.
Okay, and there was one of the dig you have coming up. Is this something that you're doing with big machinery, and you're just going to get through that blue shale and everything?
Yeah, well, once we get to that area, first we've got to find a location to do it at. We've got to find a spot where it's viable to do it. We need some mapping and stuff. But yeah, once we get to that stage, it'll involve backhoes and diggers and hand labor and all the rest of it. But the good thing is we've got tons of volunteers. We just need the financial support and everything else to get to that point. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, when do you think your next DVD is coming out?
November is what we're shooting for. We've got to raise $2,000 to get the rest of it made. But once we do that, we'll be shooting to have it out by November.
All right. Well, I thank you so much, Josh. This has been a fascinating hour. Good luck with everything you're doing. And when you have some more material, if you want to come back on, I'd love to talk to you some more about this stuff.
Absolutely. Get a hold of me. I'll come back on anytime. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Josh. We're going to